back from the summit is quite easy to do if you have good companions.
The main aim is to enjoy mountaineering. Any challenging situation involves risks. It's hard to imagine one which doesn't. Consequently, there's risks in mountaineering, admittedly, but these are minimized by good technique wherever possible. The climbers are confident. Obviously, you don't think anything's going to happen, otherwise you would be so lacking in confidence you couldn't achieve anything.
You don't stand at the bottom of an awe-inspiring cliff and say, right, I'm dead scared, but I'm going to do it. Things sort of gradually get worse as you progress through the climb, I find, at any rate. Maybe it pays not to think about it too much. If you tell yourself that if it gets difficult, well, I'll come back, and that's quite a simple concept. Although when it does get difficult, I don't think you do immediately start to turn back. You start looking for ways around the difficulty if possible. I think it's one of the aims of alpine instruction courses is to convince you that you can always get back.
Feeling on. Climbing now.
I don't think reaching the top of the mountain gives one a feeling of conquest, because it's rather hard to have a feeling of having conquered a pile of rock and ice and snow. More, it's a feeling of having perhaps conquered something in yourself. The mountain is entirely unaffected by your presence, therefore one can hardly say that one's affected the mountain in any way.
The happiness is almost as love. You feel hollow and empty inside, and really very, very glad to be there.
18 miles to the north and 8,000 feet above the ice cap was one of the major objectives. 13,000 foot Monte San Valentin, highest peak in Patagonia. With respect now for the weather generated out of those lonely western fjords, the party decided that any major excursion on the ice cap would have to be a fast-moving ski raid. Few intermediate camps would be possible. A maximum load of 120 pounds per man would have to be taken. And this meant only 12 days' food. Was this enough margin?
Top camp was finally pitched 6 miles below the cliffs of San Valentin. This massive ice peak had been climbed before, so our motives in attempting it again were mainly political. We wanted to put a party on top ourselves, then concentrate on more interesting objectives in the area, including Cerro Torre.
There was a definite tension in the air. We had learned by this time how fickle the Patagonian weather could be, and our food supplies were low. Perhaps this was our last opportunity to climb the mountain.
We only had 1 day's food left, and we were quite concerned that a storm would suddenly come up and we would be trapped, and we would have either had to move during the storm or just wait it out. And if this had taken 3 or 4 days, we could have been in quite a tricky situation. I think the most important peak, and one of the most beautiful peaks in the area, was this peak that we called Torre Tobler. And we named the peak after one of the original members of the expedition who had been killed back in New Zealand a year before the expedition left.
Koyaiki, 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 Koyaiki. De Expedition Nueva Zelandia calling Koyaiki, Koyaiki. Will attempt to climb San Valentin and Torre Tobler tomorrow, weather permitting. Cambio. We watched the sunset until late, and then lay unable to sleep until midnight, when Dave announced that the weather was still clear, but perhaps wouldn't hold for long, so the attempt was on.
Ominous clouds could be seen in the distant valleys, but this time the climbing parties were a little ahead of the storm. Filming wasn't easy in this rushed situation. A delay of 5 minutes might be regretted later on.
Climbing a mountain, I'm always a little worried. I'm always worried of going up it, and when I get to the top, it's normally with a sense of relief that, thank goodness I've got here now to get off this thing. And you might ask how you can actually equate this sort of sense of concern or the sense of worry, but well, people enjoy their job, but they still get ulcers about it.
Personally, I would much rather tackle 10 Patagonian mountains than go alone into Harlem or Watts or try to cross Central Park after dark. On a mountain, at least, you have some control over disaster.
When you're roped together, you're no longer an individual. You're part of a team if you're roped together with another bloke. You're tied together. You're tied together physically, and you can't do anything that doesn't concern the other person on the end of the rope. The crux of the climb was an ice route. So the whole top of the peak was a great huge ice mushroom that was overhanging almost all the way around. And the only way that they could get to the top of this was to go up through the ice and actually climb inside the ice. If the person on the other end of the rope is worrying and isn't confident in his climbing, this communicates to you because he's uncertain in what he's doing. He's not paying attention. He's moving much more slowly than he normally would be. And this communicates itself to you, and you no doubt get affected by this. Sometimes your confidence might increase just to help this bloke.
How much more? About 20 climbing feet. I think it'll go.
Around 11 o'clock, the blue open sky disappeared behind